21st century, doing something mean to it. Do it better than anybody you ever seen. Do it. Screams from the
Jacksonville and Philadelphia. This looked like the biggest upset of the day, and then I think both teams woke up and realized who they were. Nick Foles coming off a fantastic season, but had turnover problems initially. Sacked by Chris Clemens and fumbles the ball here, DJ.
Yeah, they were able to rattle him early in that first half. They were jamming him at the line of scrimmage. The wide receivers, no rhythm. Nick Foles struggled early on.
Well, Chad Henne looking like Nick Foles did last year. Getting some help from this guy, Alan Hearns. If you haven't heard of him yet, you will.
Yeah, can we call him the Hitman Week 1?
Yeah,
I like it.
Let's see if it sticks.
And he's wearing Michael Irvin number from the U.
There you go.
Well, here's Foles again. Seems like he has all day. Doesn't feel that pressure coming from the backside. He fumbles again, and Ziggy Hood recovers. Andre Branch, the man, getting the sack there.
Yeah, a lot of that had to do with what they were doing to those receivers. I know they want to limit the contact down the field, but at the line of scrimmage, they were getting after him.
Well, I'm going to ask you this, LT, because DJ had no answer for me. Alan Hearns, not drafted out of the University of Miami. This guy had a huge day. I don't know how that happens.
Oh, he's in the NFL.
He is, and he's making it happen. Oh, picked off there in the second quarter. Alan Ball taking care of business in the end zone. Nick Foles with 3 turnovers early. Mark Sanchez warming up, and then in the third quarter, I have a feeling we were going to have a Darren Sproles sighting. LT, this is what the little guy does. You know it well.
Yes, and if you give this guy that much room in the middle of the field, he still has the speed to take it a distance. Very quick, and once he hit that hole, people, you see right there, he's gone.
Well, that makes it 17-7, and the comeback is on. Foles then finds his tight end for the touchdown, 25 yards, Zach Ertz.
He's on my fantasy team.
This is a breakout year for Zach Ertz.
Oh, both of you guys have him. Well, I played DJ today, so I'm not liking it.
It's not close, by the way.
Here's Foles again.
Is he open?
I'm surprised he was even in the picture. How does Jeremy Maclin get that open, LT?
He's fast. He ran past everyone else.
68 yards for the touchdown. Later, Henne sacked by Trent Cole. He fumbles it. Fletcher Cox recovers, and he scoops and scores. 34-17. This much more like the outcome I think a lot of people expected than early in the game when they flipped to this game and saw it 17-0.
Hello and welcome to the Eagle Eye Focus Sports Talk podcast. We are back for another installment after a while of being away, but we're back, and the Eagles are 1-0 to start off the season after beating the Jacksonville Jaguars in what was a thrilling 34-17 victory for the Philadelphia Eagles. After starting it off 17-0, they were down in the second half. A really slow start for the Eagles offense and defense, so we're going to be talking about a lot of things with the offensive line injuries to Evan Mathis and Alan Barbara, as well as a little bit about struggling Nick Foles, who threw an interception in the red zone in the first quarter, also fumbled twice. We're going to talk about how the receiving core and the tight ends looked and how the defense looked in general as a unit, only allowing 17 points, shutting the Jacksonville Jaguars completely out of the second half. But we're also going to talk about how the Eagles adjusted in the second half after just what was one of the worst first halves of Eagles football that we've watched in quite some time. Under Chip Kelly. So, this was a game that really we thought we should have won much easier than it really was. So we're going to get into all of that and much more here on the Eagle Eye Focus Sports Talk podcast. All right, so let's actually get into it. We're going to talk about first how the first half was played. Really, honestly, what you saw a lot was Jacksonville playing very aggressive on the defensive side, blitzing, playing great press coverage, really making Nick Foles uncomfortable. Honestly, I don't think it was the Jaguars that were really just beating the Eagles. I think, honestly, it was the Eagles beating themselves. 3 quick turnovers in the first half is something that the Eagles are not prone to doing with Chip Kelly as their head coach. Nick Foles, really, his footwork was sloppy. He was missing people that were wide open. He missed Jordan Matthews on 2 big seam routes across the middle of the field that really could have been huge difference makers for the Philadelphia Eagles. Also a red zone turnover, the interception in the back of the end zone, which honestly, if he threw it a little bit higher, Brentzel could have probably pulled that in for 6. So it was an up and down game, but in the first half, it really did not go the Eagles' way. Chad Henne finished the game 24 for 43, 266 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Something that the Eagles can't allow a quarterback like Chad Henne to do when you have to play the likes of Russell Wilson this year and Andrew Luck next week. So the Eagles really got to make a quick turnaround after this win. A win is a win, but you got to take it in stride. Honestly, I think this game kind of reminds me of the game against Cleveland a couple years back during the 4-12 disaster year when Andy Reid lost his job, eventually turning it over to Chip Kelly, who came over from Oregon. But that game was really bad for the Eagles, even though they won the game. Michael Vick was intercepted 4 times, I believe. The defense really stole that win for the Eagles, picking off Brandon Weeden, I believe, 4 or 5 times on the day. So that was the year that the Eagles really just kept turning the football over and ended up winning 4 games, and that's it. So the Eagles know what they have to do. Chip Kelly, I'm not going to really be too nervous about this. The only thing is that this is the second game where Nick Foles just looked like his head was in the clouds, this and last year's game against Dallas. So if this is going to keep happening after a period of time, I mean, you got to be concerned. And this was a good quote by a CSN Philadelphia reporter who was on the lunch break of Philadelphia Eagles video. Go check him out at csnphilly.com. But he said that this was something that great quarterbacks don't do, but good quarterbacks do, if you kind of know what that means. So basically the greats like Drew Brees and Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers and you name it, don't have games like this. But honestly, I don't know what to take from Nick Foles because it's only the first game. I thought he rebounded great in the second half, showed some great maturity with what he did, finishing the day off 27 for 45, 322 yards, 2 touchdowns to 1 interception. So the numbers look pretty good from that standpoint. But honestly, if you just watched him, even in the second half, he missed a lot of throws. The Eagles' running game really pulled them out of this game. They had 32 attempts. LeSean McCoy had 21 for 74 yards. His long was a 19-yarder. And Darren Sproles, one of the big highlights of the game, a 4th and 1. Sproles busts a 49-yard touchdown to score for the Philadelphia Eagles. And a lot of people thought that what they were going to use Sproles was a lot of at wide receiver and put McCoy and him on the field at the same time, but that was not the case as they only played on the field together 4 snaps. Maybe it was because it was just against the Jacksonville Jaguars. You don't want to reveal too much, but again, this was a regular season game, and you need to take whatever you can get based on productivity. So I thought it was a good showing for Darren Sproles, who had 11 attempts for 71 yards and a touchdown. That was only 3 yards short of what LeSean McCoy had, and he had half as many attempts. So that's a great sign, and hopefully we can get Chris Polk back so you can see a more deep backfield, because honestly I don't think those two will be able to keep up the workload that they're given with just 2 running backs deep. So Chris Polk's going to add another great change of pace for the Philadelphia Eagles. Hopefully he'll be ready to go next Monday night when the Eagles take on the Indianapolis Colts, who suffered a heartbreaking loss to the Denver Broncos. But actually the Colts were down 31-7 at that game, storming back. The Colts erased that huge lead and was within a score with a minute left, but they couldn't get the ball back, so they ended up losing that game 31-28. So it was a really good game there for the Colts. So we'll see what the Eagles defense. We'll do that on the preview show. We'll see what the Eagles defense is going to have to do to slow down Andrew Luck and how the offense can rebound. Evan Mathis and Alan Barber both suffered injuries on the offensive line. Evan Mathis was reported to have injured his MCL, not ACL, so we're crossing our fingers that is going to be okay. Hopefully he just had a sprain of the MCL. Chip Kelly said in his press conference today, quote, "I don't expect this to be the season-ending type of injury." So that's great news for one of the best left guards in the NFL, if not the best left guard. And I don't know if you can honestly keep naming better left guards than Evan Mathis right now, but it wasn't just the injuries on the offensive line, because Jason Peters really struggled in the first half. You saw Chris Clemens really having a field day on Nick Foles, strip tackling him twice in that first half. So that was something that could be cause for concern. Nick Foles fumbled twice. He lost both of them. But at the same time, there were some really good things from the offense looking into the second half. where Jeremy Maclin, after having his entire year last year erased due to a torn ACL, came back with a huge day for 4 receptions, 97 yards, and a touchdown, including the notable long 68-yard bomb that Nick Foles hit him in broken coverage down the field for a touchdown to put the Eagles into the lead 24-17, which was a huge play for the Eagles, who desperately needed that pick-me-up as they... But, I mean, they just showed great maturity. Honestly, I think when people say they're concerned about Nick Foles, I'm not, because just the way he carries himself and how he prepares for each game and how him and Chip Kelly, how their rapport is, I think that, honestly, that we're going to be just fine. He really showed maturity, erasing that 17-point lead. He was poised. He really stood in the pocket, even though the pocket really, honestly, was better than it seemed with two guys that were never on the Eagles besides this year coming in, filling in for on offensive line, the positions that they didn't even play, with Andrew Gardner and David Molk, who is Jason Kelsey's backup center, who had to move over to the guard position. To the guard position, and Gardner played right tackle for Alan Barbara. Molk said in his press conference that he tried to take it like he was playing center at guard, and quickly changed that mindset because of how he was struggling. Because as you could see at first, Nick Foles was really getting hit a lot and was not comfortable in the pocket, but the Eagles really bounced back and adjusted that quickly. And that's something really you want to see in a team, is how they adjust in the face of adversity, and how they adjust game plan wise, just based on if Jacksonville's got the best of your game plan, how are you going to change it around. And I thought that was something that was really good. So that's that for that. A big name player for the Jaguars yesterday was Allen Hurns, the undrafted rookie receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Had 110 yards off of 4 receptions and 2 touchdowns. He's the second receiver in NFL history to score on both of his first 2 receptions in the NFL. I was even wondering, where's Allen Robinson, the third round pick out of Penn State? He was nowhere to be seen. Let's check out the stats here. He had 1 reception for no yards, so kind of a disappointing outing for him. Marquise Lee had 6 receptions for 62 yards. So an okay day for the Jaguars, but what I took from the Jaguars is they're a young team, and they're gonna learn from this, and with only a couple veterans on that defense and the offense, I don't think they really knew how to respond when the Eagles, how a CBS analyst said, when they get punched in the mouth, how are you going to respond? I thought that was a great way to put it, because I think the Jaguars really just had no answer, and I think the defense for the Eagles stepped up huge in the entire game. And I think when people were really complaining about Kerry Williams and Nate Allen in the secondary, they were being put on the 30-yard line every drive due to the turnovers. That's why when you lose the turnover battle, even though the Eagles did lose that, they ended up winning the game. Odds are you're going to end up losing the game, and this can't keep going if the Eagles know that. I'm not concerned about this team turnover-wise compared to a team in 2012 when you thought it just couldn't get any worse. 2012-2013 season, so that was one thing I took from this. But also how the defense really responded in the second half. They did not. Here's a fun stat: the Eagles did not allow a third down conversion until the end of the third quarter. So that's something huge to take for the Philadelphia Eagles, who I thought defensively really stepped up. One of the notable plays was the strip sack from Trent Cole in the end of the game, really to put the game away, where Fletcher Cox scored his first ever touchdown in the NFL. Fletcher Cox had a great game. He led the team. He was tied the team in tackles with Michael Kendricks for 6 tackles, and Michael Kendricks had a sack. How good was that draft class? I'm serious. I mean, that draft class, those two draft classes, were just really something that's super impressive to take from. Fletcher Cox, Michael Kendricks. If I'm not mistaken, I hope I'm not mixing up these drafts, but I'm pretty sure that it was Brandon Boykin and Nick Foles. And I believe Vinny Curry was in there too. I mean, so let's go back and we can check that right now. But I believe really, that these young guys, the Eagles' core for the future is within those guys, and I was really impressed on how they bounced back. And yes, they were in the 2013 draft class. Not to mention, let's see. Yes. And Vinny Curry, another player that really, when he was in there, made a big difference, I believed. And So there was a lot of things to take from the defense. Bend don't break, as everyone liked to say last year. I thought they really did a good job of maintaining that type of mentality. So I mean, I thought it was a great game. It was thrilling. I don't have no fingernails left, which is something that hopefully won't keep going for the entire Eagles season. Is to be worried as worried as I was yesterday. As for special teams, I thought the Eagles were really shining. Brandon Boykin, I think, is very underrated for his special teams play. That kneel down at the 1 yard line, I thought was terrific. Also, Chris Maragos, the signing formerly of the Seattle Seahawks, Super Bowl winning champion, captain on special teams for the Eagles now, a huge, almost taking over that Colt Anderson. And him and Brian Bremen looked terrific on special teams. Bremen almost blocking a punt. And there was a kick blocked also for the special teams. Brandon Bear, the stud preseason defensive end, coming in for the Eagles, making the roster, which was not expected of him, ended up blocking a field goal to keep the Eagles within 17 points. There were a lot of times where the Jaguars could have been up 24-0, 31-0 with these touchdowns and field goals that the Jaguars just did not take advantage of. So the Eagles maybe caught a lucky break there, but honestly, I thought it was a great game for the special teams. Nolan Carroll, honestly, at the kick returning position, I wasn't a huge fan of. I thought a lot of the time he was forcing returns, and we would end up with bad field position. A lot of time, I think the average start for our field position was at the 17-yard line, so maybe he should just stick to corner. I don't know what Chip Kelly thinks of that performance, but honestly, when you have guys like Brad Smith and Darren Sproles, who had an amazing punt returning game, who gave the Eagles tremendous field position throughout the entire game, especially in the second half. I'm gonna name an MVP every week, and week 1 goes to Darren Sproles. I thought he really showed a lot of poise, and he was a veteran. He showed his veteran leadership, and just really he was calm and collective, and he really brought the Eagles back, honestly, I think. And also a guy that I was a really big fan of yesterday was Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is a player that I think is going to be huge for the success of the Philadelphia Eagles this year. He finished with 77 yards receiving. Also, breaking news from the NFL right now. We're going to take a stop from this Eagles recap. Indianapolis Colts defensive end Robert Mathis is out for the season with a torn Achilles. So that's huge for the Colts, who will be playing the Philadelphia Eagles next week. I believe Mathis was actually in a suspension anyway, so I don't know if the Eagles would have had to worry about that, but that's a huge thing for the Indianapolis Colts, whose defense has really struggled throughout the past couple seasons under Chuck Pagano, who's supposed to be a big defensive-minded head coach. I'm surprised, really, that no one's really responding to that criticism, but I thought it was a great game, as I keep on saying, but I'm just really happy about the performance. I thought it was a really good one, and just breaking off the rust. Haven't done a podcast since the draft, and I apologize for that for my actual audience that actually listens to me. But I'm also on the EaglesAddict.com website if you want to check out all my good stuff there. Moving over from the EaglesAddict.com and the Eagles Eye Focus Sports Talk podcast and blog have joined forces, so I'm going to be doing a lot of guest appearances on that website. But Zach Ertz really showed that he can go up and get passes. Tremendous 25-yard touchdown. Nick Foles lofted it up in triple coverage. Zach Ertz goes up and gets it. He's going to be huge to the success of the Philadelphia Eagles, not only in the red zone, but basically on huge third down conversions. And I think you're definitely going to see him take a step over Brent Selleck as the main go-to tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles. Honestly, I think Zach Ertz is a better, more skilled tight end than Brent Selleck. No disrespect to Selleck, who's been a great player for the Eagles for the past 6 seasons and had a great year last year. And I still think obviously can be used. Most of the NFL teams use 2 tight end sets a lot these days, not only for running for the football, but on passing situations because of how talented these tight ends are. But I thought Zach Ertz was a great pick-me-up for the Eagles, and he was a nice surprise, as everyone's been talking about his breakout potential in fantasy football. But I've been saying how important he'll be for the Eagles' playoff aspirations for this NFL season. So 34-17, the final score for the Eagles against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Start off the season 1-0. Those Dallas Cowboys and Washington Redskins got their behinds handed to them, if I could say, excuse my French. The Houston Texans defeated the Washington Redskins 17-6, and the Dallas Cowboys really just were not in the game all day, lost the game against the 49ers 28-17. So a good day for the Philadelphia Eagles in general, situation-wise. So, I mean, that's that 1-0 for the Philadelphia Eagles. The New York Giants around the NFC East to take on the Detroit Lions tonight at 7 o'clock, and then you got the Chargers and the Arizona Cardinals going at it for the 10 o'clock game. But football is back, and it's a great way to start it off. A nice heart attack for week 1 is good, so we'll get to the blood flowing. So we'll hope to keep the winning ways going next week. Monday night, the Eagles start off their prime time, and then week 3, they get Deshaun Jackson's return to Philadelphia against the Washington Redskins. LeSean McCoy finished off the game with 74 yards. I thought he showed a lot of poise in the end. LeSean McCoy is a guy that really you need to go to in the clutch, and honestly, when things aren't looking good, I'm way more comfortable with LeSean McCoy with the ball in his hands. And honestly, the Eagles were trying to do that, but seem to be sticking with the passing game and really are committed to not giving LeSean McCoy a huge workload. But it's really hard to do that when you see some of the plays he was making yesterday. As for the run game for the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Eagles' run defense looked terrific. Toby Gerhart only had 42 yards and also suffered a leg injury during the game after Fletcher Cox threw him to the ground from the backside, and Toby Gerhart looked to be shaken up. So the defense looked great run-wise. The linebackers, Michael Kendricks and D'Amico Ryans, had very impressive performances. And I'm excited. I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited about this young defensive line. Benny Logan, Fletcher Cox, Cedric Thornton, and two guys that have been super underrated for the past couple years that always seem to produce when they're on the field, but just don't seem to fit the scheme very often is Brandon Graham and Vinnie Curry. Brandon Graham had 4 tackles yesterday, including a big hit on Jaguars running backs. Denard Robinson, I believe. I want to say it's Denard Robinson or whichever, him or Toby Gerhart, but Graham came over from the left side and just lowered the shoulder and leveled him for a 3-yard loss. Graham has really been helping mentor Marcus Smith, too, the first-round pick of the Philadelphia Eagles this year out of Louisville. So he's really been doing a lot of good things for this team after really having a slow start to his career. He really seems to be finding a place and has adjusted to the outside linebacker position as well as he could so far in his second year as a 3-4 outside linebacker. And as for Vinnie Curry, I still see him more as a 3-4 end who's really been succeeding in pass rushing. Pro Football Focus ranked Vinnie Curry as the second most efficient pass rusher in the NFL, but I mean you can only take so much from that with the limited amount of snaps he has. So there's my spiel for the Eagles-Jaguars game. My rant of the day, honestly, I mean, I guess you could say it would be about the turnovers because when you say how perfect the Eagles' offense is going to be with Chip Kelly, I don't know. I just thought it was kind of disappointing to see that. And Nick Foles' footwork, that's something I'm very concerned with, but we'll see how it progresses. Mark Sanchez actually had his helmet on and was warming up at the end of the first half, so kind of a bit of a concern for the Eagles there, but Nick Foles did a great job of bouncing back. But again, I'd like to see a little bit more rotation in the secondary. I think Earl Wolf needs to be put on the field a lot more. I think Nate Allen really struggled this game, but I thought he showed some good things. He had a nice blitz sack for the Eagles that ended up Chad Henne fumbling it out of bounds. So I thought that was very interesting that Nate Allen was used in a blitz situation. Malcolm Jenkins is just, you're not going to see a lot of flash from him. You're going to see him provide a very steady and solid safety from the Eagles. He's not going to get beat over the top, and he had a really good game yesterday and had a couple nice hits. But again, I'd like to see Earl Wolf yesterday, who should have been ruled a fumble. He would have ended up having a fumble recovery that he almost took it. He took it past the 50-yard line, almost took it to the house if it wasn't for a trip up. But I think Earl Wolf has deserved to get some playing time in this. And you can rotate safeties. You can even have 3 safeties set sometimes, which is something I'm excited to see for the Eagles. There's a lot still to see. I mean, it's only week 1, and the Eagles started off the season on top. 34-17, 34 straight unanswered points, so it's a great game. Again, we'll be back for the recap of the preview podcast for the Indianapolis Colts this Thursday. So again, thanks for joining me here on the Eagle Eye Focus Sports Talk podcast. Go follow me for all your Eagles tweets at DB Sports Talk. Again, check me out in my latest articles at eaglesportstalk.blogspot.com or eaglesaddict.com. And go Birds.